Active here shortly. All right, welcome back to My Spiritual Experience with your host, Brother Sadiq. Today we have a new guest in the house. This is a longtime friend of mine, and actually, she's my Juice Plus provider. So, and her name is Judy Farnsworth. She's going to share her spiritual experience with us today. And as you all know, for everyone who watches this show is about everyday spirituality and bringing the spiritual experience out of mystical closet into the everyday, so that the everyday Joe can understand how he experiences that and maybe relate. So this is Judy. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you, Sadiq, Brother Sadiq.
Thank you for being here. I always start my and this, like I said, this is my Juice Plus representative. If you're not aware of Juice Plus, it is a product that is very good for your health. It is fruit and vegetable based, and this young lady is 70 years old. Is she so?
73.
Bow, Juice Plus. There we go. Some Juice Plus still.
I'm gonna have.
Juice Plus is still working, so I'm glad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great product, and we're not here to advertise Juice Plus, but it's something we share, and so I thought it's something I'd mention again. But yeah, the way we start this show is I like to ask everyone, and I'll ask you the same. Where and when was your first spiritual experience that you recognized something was going on outside of the normal everyday rigmarole?
Yeah, that's interesting because I've been thinking about this and thinking about I can't do this without talking about my mom.
Well, that's where it starts. That's where it starts.
Absolutely. And my mom was a person who she was one of the spooky people a little bit. She was just a real sensitive, and I just remember from a very young child, she didn't talk about it a lot because it's not an everyday conversation and some people look at you funny or whatever. But she experienced sort of awareness of people in the next world.
Oh.
So I was aware that she had those, not a lot and not in a distracting kind of way. I just remember her telling me stories of being, for example, she was maybe a young teen, and she was walking home. She was outdoors walking home and crossing a bridge or something, and she saw her grandmother coming towards her. Well, there's no reason why her grandmother would have been coming towards her, and she knew in that moment that her grandmother had passed. So that was kind of her way of being. And as I got older, and as in all our lives, she started to have friends that were passing and dying and going into the next world, the spiritual world. She just kind of maintained an awareness of some of those people, not all of them, but she would just, mention it every once in a while. It was just, so for me, it was always a fact of life that there was a non-physical existence.
Very interesting. I didn't know that about you. That's a very good start to this conversation.
Well, that's, I often talk about my mom in relation to a lot of things because I feel like she was an unusual woman of her time and our, neighborhood or whatever. She was very, very intelligent, very thoughtful person, and just didn't take things for granted. And she was also a person, so here's one of the earliest things, you can take it for what it's worth. She was like one of those moms that would write down the cute things that her kids said in the baby book or whatever she would write on a scrap of paper, which is amazing to think because I was the second kid. I wasn't the first kid, and sometimes the first kid gets lots of, oh, they did this, they did that.
Yeah, I
Which
understand.
to kind of keep going a little bit. And there's a scrap of paper that she had written some of my comments from being in church, and that I experienced church as Mormon friendly. And my memory of that space is that it was a sunlit space. So on Sunday morning, that room that we were in, apparently the sun shone in, and there were curtains, and sometimes the windows were open and the curtains would move. And apparently I said the curtains were yawning, little things that kids say. But we did it. So I'm from New England. I'm from Massachusetts. And I was raised south of Chicago. We moved there when I was in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And so my experience of church, which is religion, but also spirituality,
Right.
was pretty much New England style,
You
which is
definitely have to explain that.
sitting quietly.
Okay.
And just it's a pretty low key experience.
Okay.
But apparently I experienced it as warm and friendly. So no fire and brimstone, no, waving of hands, nothing like that. Very quiet.
Right.
So I mean that's kind of the background. So just saying that I never remember a time where I didn't kind of assume that there's a non-physical aspect to life that one can be aware of in this life.
Right. And so it sounds like you had a very auspicious start to life. Like your mom was already aware of the spiritual realities of life, and so you kind of had a insight from your very beginning.
Yes.
Very good.
And what she gave to us in relation to that was I think really supportive and really open-minded. She was very much a seeker. I think in her young life, she attended a lot of different churches and just really thought about where she was and what she was hearing. And so that's sort of my heritage.
Mm-hmm.
So that is like, so her experiences, I see that elsewhere in my family. I am not one of the people with the sort of the spooky gene. I mean, and so
my mom had it too, so
so it's been for me this path, this lifetime of, so I just remember, and then again, this is in the thinking realm, rather than maybe the experiential realm, but I would just remember as so around 12, 13, 14, I would really like to think about God.
Mm-hmm.
And we would go to church. I was in the youth group. We did different things, and so I've just always been interested for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I can't take credit for that. It's just apparently how I'm wired.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Like I had an innate nature to understand the idea of God. I think because for one, I am alive and this is life, and if there is a rule, a set, idea of someone who created this, and there are some outlines and guidelines of how we should move in it, then I think that's something we should all know. So yeah. So it was innate. It was innate in me as well, like to wonder about God and existence. And I wondered also about like other people's lives, right? Like I wondered, like, when I was a kid, 5, 6 years old, we, get in a car and go somewhere. You see other people in cars, and I will always wonder, like, what do they do in their life? Like, what do they eat? What do they watch? That was weird.
I know. I drive by people's houses and I think about, well, what's it like in that house at Christmas time? Or, what's it like in the summer? Or you see an old farmhouse and I just picture, a late summer afternoon and people been out working in the fields coming in and the people working in the house been making dinner and people come in the door and the screen door slams and, that's what's going on for me when I'm driving around.
I don't know what that is, but I have that same mindset. Like, I have especially when I'm in small towns, it's like, it's a natural curiosity. Like, I wonder what life is like to live here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, like, do they know their neighbors and what is that? Yeah. So curiosity. I think I have a lot of curiosity.
And so you say at 13 and 14, you began to wonder about God. And so what did that lead to?
Well, so as I said, we were involved in a church. I would go to youth group. And I remember, so I was really enthusiastic about the idea of this, learning and sharing about, that there's a wonderful teaching. So but at the same time, I was never super interested in thinking that anybody else was shut out.
Right.
If they didn't go to my church.
Right.
That's not the way I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is not a spiritual thing. It's more of a, what was our family culture? What was the thought that I was raised with? And it really was that, good people are good people. And if they're trying to follow a good path, that's what we're supposed to do. And I don't get to decide who's in and who's out. And that's a higher pay grade than mine.
Right.
And so time goes on and so I get to college age and now I'll back up a little bit. So more high school. I just remember, I just always felt like there's a higher, I just remember in my youth group one time we were having some discussion and I said, well, what about joy? Joy. And they looked at me like I had two heads. Like, what do you mean joy? What are you talking about? So I think on some level, my heart longed for and knew that there's more to it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a higher thing than my current mood of the day.
Right.
Or what I'm supposed to feel about whatever's happening, that there's something bigger than that. And I went to college and happened to be a Lutheran college. I don't come from a Lutheran background. That was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some folks that certain flavors of Lutheranism, and I hope I'm not offending anybody who might be listening on or watching this. But my experience of that is that there are outlooks in some branches of that are if you don't do it up our way, you're not.
Yeah. Right.
And I never felt for that. I mean, I never felt that way. And but so there I was. And but then I found some other people, my friends, who were interested and involved in something that really was talking about one God, one faith that has come down through time for all people in various garbs, if you will.
Okay. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Different clothes that are right for the time in which it appeared.
Hmm. So this is interesting because um, in my own personal studies, I feel like I had come to that conclusion. I feel like I had discerned a truth that was a theme through the different studies of religion that I did embark upon in my life. And I
Mhm.
like innately that it was just one message and that it was related to the times of the people in the place and the occurrence in their community.
Mhm.
And so that the thing that was causing the differences in the aspects of socialization around the spiritual aspects of the religion.
Mhm.
If that's not too complicated of a
Yeah,
perspective.
no, that for that time there were certain practices and ways of thinking about things that even though it's something that's always true, it was thought about at a level that had to do with the level of social development of the people at the time. So a very more rudimentary social development. There might be, so thinking back to maybe the early books of the Bible, and this sort of, there were some rules and you needed to follow them, and if you didn't follow them, the consequences were dire.
Mhm.
Well, those were communities that were very small. They didn't encounter people from far away. They had a lot to learn about just behaving themselves in their group and
Mhm.
having a small level social order. And then over time, bigger and bigger units, social units developed. And then another messenger comes. This is how I understand it. Um, and brings teachings that expand upon and are appropriate for the sort of level of development. For example, in the time of Moses, what Moses brought was really these laws, right?
Mhm.
The Ten Commandments. And this is like, you think about a young child and you're first trying to learn, teach them, help them to learn to control their own behavior, right? So you
Yeah.
have to say, well, we do this and we do this and we do this and we don't do this and we don't do this and we do this.
Right.
And we don't talk a lot about, well, you need to love your neighbor and all that, because they're not ready for that. Never, even though it's always been true that we need to love our neighbor. So then along comes Christ, and he's like, yeah, so some of these rules that we had that were right for that other time, we don't really need that now, but we do need to have a larger understanding of our relationship to larger groups of people around us and our acceptance and love of them, and that they're God's people too. So this expanding and expanding and expanding. Anyway, so that's what I began to learn about with my friends, and then the practice of prayer. So I wasn't raised with a real heavy prayer practice.
Mhm.
I mean, when we were little, my mom would come put us to bed and we would say, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take.
Take
I
that.
really thought about that. I would have been absolutely terrified.
Say he coming to take my soul? What are you saying? Why
Right. I'm afraid to go to sleep now. Like, I can't go to sleep
you
because I
right.
might die.
So many things we're indoctrinated into. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. I
No, you
don't know what this
said it.
means.
You just said it.
I have no idea what this means.
Right. But we all stood there and, said it because we're supposed to. And that was the level of development that we were then.
Yes, I understand.
Right. And then when you're 18, 19, so when you're 13, 14, 15, you start thinking about, well, what is my relationship to my creator?
Right.
That's what's me. It's like, what is that? And then but then taking what does this have to do with me living in society?
That's what it was all about for me, right? And this is I'm gonna just say I was a little dude, and I remember I had a friend. I don't remember. She may have been like 60 years old or older. She was an older lady. Her name was Mrs. Francis. She was an Italian lady.
Oh, I love that you had Mrs. Francis.
Yeah, and she was like my best friend, and it was weird because I was a kid. I was 5, and my mom used to let me hang out with her, and and I think she was what you call the spooky people, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I believe she was one of those, insightful sensitives, as you say. And she used to give me massive gifts, right? Like for a 5-year-old, she would give me like a box of fudge sickles with like 12 in it.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I'm 5, and it's a grown adult. This is a family setting. And and she'd be like, "Huh, you take these," and she'd be like, "Don't share them with your sister. Don't share them with these."
What?
Yes, so it was.
She's not teaching you to share.
It was she would give me like the pops. She would give me like lollipops and like the
Oh
blow
my gosh.
like 12 of them, and be like, don't share them with them kids. So it was like the other kids, and I remember the experience. It was like the kids, like the other kids say, "Oh, Miss Francis is a witch, you're a witch," and run from her, and she was like that lady.
Oh, so she's like, oh, those kids, they don't deserve it.
Exactly. So she would tell me not to share with them, but that was a challenge for me. I'm 5. I got way more than I could ever have to do. So, I don't know how
12 of these.
Storing things, or what I'm saying.
Right, they're gonna melt.
Yeah. So I just take them home to mom, and so. But this lady, she was very unique, and I think that that ultimately was like a part of a further education that was like spiritual for me, that I didn't understand then, that later played itself out as part of my reality to understand and where it fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So she would tell you about her connection with the non-physical world?
No, I don't really know. I mean, I'm gonna just say
You felt it? You just felt it.
Yes, I felt it. She had things hanging from her ceiling, like yeah, like when you're a kid, you're not recognizing what these things are, but as an adult, I've walked in, I've seen movies where it looks like a voodoo house or something.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
One of the other kids are like,
when you're a kid, it just looks like pop balloons. You know what I'm saying? You don't really pay attention to that stuff. You just, hanging out or whatever. But as an adult, and I asked my mom, even as an adult, like, Mom, because after I became a father and the protective nature that you have over your children, I had to ask Mom, why would you let me hang out with that lady?
This crazy old lady who gave me candy and popsicles.
Yeah, and she was like, "Oh, Miss Francis, she was nice. I knew she wasn't gonna hurt nothing, Miss Francis." And so what my mom eventually told me is that so many people in the neighborhood used to go to this lady for like their lottery numbers.
Oh, I see.
Yes. So they had different adult relationships that, of course, I didn't know about. But
yeah. Okay, so she had insight into some things, or at least they thought she did.
Yeah, it was a unique relationship, and so I think about it from time to time. But
it's a very special person in your life. Yeah. So so I get on up into college age, and then you start kind of, and that was at a time. Obviously, I'm almost as old as dirt, so that was during the turmoil around. So I came up in in the civil rights times, and then we rolled on into the Vietnam War protests and all of that, and so there was a lot of thinking about what's right and wrong in society, what's right and wrong for humans, how we act towards each other, and I was on raised with the people that are like, no, we need to all be kind to each other and be just and fair and change these laws and overcome these things, and also we need to stop killing each other, and so protesting the war and things like that, and so those concerns were certainly there too. In some ways, I mean, the way things are right now are worse than it was, but the tone and the divisiveness was certainly there then as well. This, people lining up on either side of lines and, ready to take each other on. And so here were my friends saying, no, there's a way of looking at the world and looking at people and looking at that is what God wants us to look at each other as one people. And so I started, was really attracted to that, started studying, and what I'm referring to is the Baha'i faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so prayer, and then I touched on prayer. So prayer is one of the practices, and then also fasting, as almost all of the religions that we can think of have some form of spiritual discipline that involves refraining from food and drink and maybe sex, and for certain periods of time,
Mm-hmm.
as a spiritual benefit.
Right. Yes.
And so and this is so interesting because Brother Sadiq, you touched on the fast, that there's the Baha'i 19 days fast started yesterday.
Right.
And I have aged out of that, so I don't have to do the physical fast anymore. But as I watched my friends, and they were young people too, beginning to practice that, and something about that just got to me.
Positively, or like
I was so moved by it somehow. I really can't explain it. I really can't explain it.
Maybe the level of dedication to something.
I think so. This idea that they cared enough about what they believed that they would go through this, because we like our food, right?
Yeah.
And so one day I got up and I went, we didn't lock our doors. So I went and I got food, and I went into their apartment. They weren't even up yet. And I was like cleaning their dishes and making breakfast. And I just wanted to do something for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt a connection through that. And
something pulling on your spirit, huh?
Something pulling on my spirit, yeah. And I don't know. And they were, they included me in some things. And I was learning a few things, and so here's an actual experience. You asked about experiences, and so couple months after that, it was in that May, so that was March, and then at that I had reached a point where I felt like I really wanted to commit to this path, this faith, this Baha'i faith, that I believed that the founder of that faith had the authority from God to share these teachings with us, and that they were authoritative for us, and that so I was ready to enroll. And so in those days, and even still now, there's like a card that you sign that you're saying that you basically, it's an acknowledgement that you believe that Baha-U-llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, is the manifestation of God for this day, and that his teachings are authoritative, and that as an enrolled Baha'i, you need to follow his teachings, his laws, whatever. And so so that's what that is. And so there came a day, I was like, okay, guys, I want to sign my card.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like all excited. They're like, oh my gosh. So I'm at my friend's apartment, and so if you know Seals and Crofts.
I have
the musician Seals and Crofts. Yeah, this is a long time ago now. So
I've heard of the group, right?
Yeah, it was a group, and they were Baha'is and as well.
Wow,
And songs, and one of their songs was called "Year of Sunday," and you can find it on the YouTubes and listen to it. And it is about this idea that of this progression of teachers through for humanity through time, these spiritual teachers.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's called Year of Sunday. So look it up.
Yeah, I definitely will.
And I'm not going to sing it for you because that would be painful. But so they had, and of course in those days we had a stereo, right? A turntable, speakers, a little tuner, amplifier, all that stuff. And so we had some Seals and Crofts record on, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna like sign my card. So I signed my card, and
Hey,
then
one question.
okay,
Is Crosby, Stills, and Nash related?
no, Seals and Crofts.
Seals and Crofts.
Yes, so Jimmy Seals dash Crofts.
Okay. All right. Good.
And then Jim Seals had a brother, Dan Seals, he was a country singer.
Mm.
Again, but these guys, and anyway, so that song was playing, and I was like, okay, so now I need to go and pray. So I went into the next room. I took a prayer book with me because, because the Baha'is have a lot of prayers that are like revealed by Baha-U-llah and Abdul-Baha. So we use prayer books. So I went in and I'm saying a prayer, and the song had ended.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the last song on the album, and the song ended. So I'm in there saying the prayer, and all of a sudden the song started playing again.
Mm.
I was like, whoa. That was one of my sort of little experiences.
So that was like a confirmation for you.
That's a nice way of putting it. Yeah, I would say so. It was just kind of like, I have no idea. It might have been just that thing that the turntable like started, just does that. I don't know.
Well, our perception is our reality. So
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Perception, and we have to understand that. So it's like so we want to refine our perception. Like where am I standing with my perception?
yes.
Am I standing in a low place with my perception, in my lower nature, for example, where things feel like threats or hungers or drives that I can't control?
Right.
Or am I standing with my perception in my higher nature, where I see a difficulty and I see this is calling out of me a higher response, and I need to like be more patient, or those kinds of things.
This is a beautiful conversation. This is actually something I was talking about just recently. And well, actually, I just did an interview shortly before we had an interview, and it came up the conversation of us reaching our highest potential, right? Human, our species, reaching our highest potential. And some of the programming that we've under socially has caused us to have flawed perceptions of ourselves, right? We'll say it that way, right? And that because we have these socialized perceptions of what men should be, women should be, whatever it may be, people don't tend to reach their highest potential. For one, in my opinion, because we're not comfortable expressing our truest self. And I don't think you can reach your highest potential if you don't express your authentic, true nature and self.
And the question is so hard. What helps us do that? Because we have to get past all the messaging. So where do you find the true message? Where do you find who's going to tell you who you really are? And this is what I find in the teachings of the messengers of God, is they've always been telling us, you are God's child. And you have high capacities. You have high potential. You have a noble nature, but you have to work on it. They all say that. And So where one of the in the Baha'i writings, I think it's Baha-U-llah, that says, what greater oppression can there be for a man to want to know the truth and not to know where to look for it?
Alhamdulillah. Really, so true. And that is, I think, the like, so when we were, like I said, I often have conversations with people, and it starts, most people's path really starts in religion, right? And religion, in its structured format, in most ways, has some rules that are socially oriented and other rules that are spiritually oriented, right?
Mhm.
And so when people are searching for the deeper spiritual aspects of themselves, their nature, their relation to, you know, the existence and the creator, it tends to send them on a path that is experiential. They seek the experiential, internal, spiritual aspects of
Mhm.
life. And so it tends to, what I seem to find is that it tends to start in religion and it spreads deeper into the experiential experience of spirituality that people really seek, that will be transformed, because our experience is internal. You know, our you know,
Yeah, I agree. And I think our experience still occurs in the context of our common humanity. And so yeah, there is that inner turning, and what is that really but seeking our connection with our creator?
mhm, yes,
And again, that's who we really are. We are the child of the creator who, so what did Bahá'u'lláh say? He said, veiled in my immemorial being, I knew my love for thee. Wherefore I created thee, have engraved on thee mine image, and revealed to me thee my beauty.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
He also said, love me that I may love thee. If thou lovest me not, my love can in no wise reach thee. Know this, O servant.
Right. Yes, I 100% agree.
Because if you're not looking, so this is the connection between something on the spiritual level and then the physical world for me.
Mhm.
So I just feel like the outer world, the world of nature. Some people are like, "Oh, the world of nature, that's all there is, right?" No, it's just a mirror of these truths. And so I remember noticing, sunflowers.
Mhm.
They come up, they're big. Do you ever notice what sunflowers do? So the sun comes up over here in the morning. That old sunflower, it's
Follow,
over here. It's pointing at the sun,
yeah, it follows it.
and it follows it all day long.
Mhm.
And it never turns away
Mhm.
because it can't. I mean, there's a biochemical thing going on there that I actually know about. But that's a mirror of what's possible for us, is we can receive as long as we're faced towards it.
Yes, I agree.
And if we turn away from it, is there any surprise that we're have a hard time accessing true happiness?
And listen, so as we speak about this, there you mentioned the world of nature, right? So you have the world of nature, and so this is I have this base reality understanding of man and this earth, right? So the things that, like what we're living in now, we're on this internet and all of the tools that men have created, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jobs, work, all these different things. That is what I consider the man-made matrix, right? Okay, you got
Mm-hmm.
that existence. That is definitely part of reality that we must navigate. There is also your spiritual experience, which is internal, which is kind of the unseen world. And I think the challenge for most people is understanding the interplay, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do they work, and how do they work together, and what is the relevance of
Yeah.
one towards
Why?
the other. Yeah, yeah,
Why?
yeah.
Why are we even doing this?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
what is the purpose?
What is the purpose of this all? Right. What is my relation to this earth and the creation of it? What is my relation to the creator itself? And how am I to express this into the world in its correct way?
In its correct way. Yeah, yeah. There's yeah, yeah, because there's a context. It's what's the context here? So so when you talk about that inner experience, here's so my experience now over this time as I've lived in this particular path and my whole adult life, and as I continue in this path, and it's challenging because there's kind of like no retirement, but you don't you don't act like a 30-year-old. I can't do what 30-year-olds do. It's not my job to do what 30-year-olds do.
Correct.
My job to be where I am now and still serve.
Yes.
What I have found is staying connected with this path and the emerging processes within the Baha'i community that really have to do with the larger world, is that the more I try to serve to help make the world better along certain lines of action, the more I have to go inside myself to build these spiritual qualities. So my personal transformation goes along in tandem with my effort to transform the outside world, to help the outside world. So I can't just go into a cave and think about the virtue of patience or justice in the abstract. And I can't just seek spooky experiences and think that really is the purpose.
Right.
It's an effect. I'll tell you another experience that I had once, and I don't really know what it was, and I've never really had it again. But when I was still in college, so when you're in college, like there's things going on in your brain that are amazing. I was praying, and in my dorm, there was a room set aside. There was like a little chapel, just a little place to sit, a little cross or whatever, a little light on it, and it was like right next to my room, my dorm room. And I was in there, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like really, really pray earnestly. And I was using the prayer book. And I had the prayer book open, and the feeling, the difference between when you're just kind of praying and you're just saying it versus you've opened your heart, you're really present, and that feeling of being in that other place. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I know you do. So I'd kind of gotten there with that. I was just like really. It wasn't mental earnestness, it was open-heartedness, right? I really stepped away from the world. And I can't really explain it, but what I perceived is as I was reading the prayer, is like there were inner meanings pouring out of the text, off of the page, into me. Really fast. I couldn't tell you what they were. It wasn't intellectual. It wasn't intellectual understanding. I guess in modern day language, it was kind of a download, but I couldn't tell you what it actually was. I just know that something happened. So my prayer life, I work on it. I'm not always great at it. I'm just like everybody. Like some days you're just like, did it, right? And other times it's just.
It's food.
It's food.
Yeah. Other times it is.
On the floor.
Yes.
Head to the ground. God you know, you see me, I got nothing. Nothing, unless you give it to me.
Right.
And all that, you know, and I've been around for a while. I've been through a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like everybody else. I have grief and pain, disappointment, um, certainly feeling all the ways that I've fallen short. And you get up into my range and you really start thinking, you know, I'm on the downslope here, you know, I don't know how much longer I'll be on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I hope hope I'm on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That came up today. And I don't mean to cut you, but that came up today in conversation. We were talking about the things that people regret. Like I watch near-death experiencers and people who say they've gone over and come back. So
mhm.
one of the things that I find a consistent theme is that what people regret is not what they say, not leaving it all on the field, right?
Mm.
Not or dying with their song inside of them, right? That's like
Mm.
years. You know what I mean? I feel like the purpose of life in itself is to express the love and the light and the influence that God brings through me into this world in my most effervescent way. Like I like to envision my being like an orange or a lemon, and that when you walk by, you're going to smell that.
The fragrance. Yeah. I know.
So I look at that as my spiritual. Yeah, I
Yeah.
try to see it as my spiritual energy, expressing that way. And so I try to envision myself as such in my own processes of, meditation or however I may go about it. But yeah, that's one of the things that I do because I feel like too many people have not reached their full potential. Like if you look at the society in the world, like I don't okay, so this is not to knock anyone, but the idea of being born into sin is quite a challenge and a psychological programming that is challenging to overcome once you accepted that as a reality for yourself. So that is a challenging process to overcome.
So that idea is that you just brought up a big bomb there.
It's a Western idea, so that's
so a lot of our culture, that's what we were taught.
Yes.
That's what we were taught. But when Baha-U-llah said, noble thee, then he says, wherefore dost thou abase thyself? So that's, you do that to yourself.
Yes.
And that sin is error.
Mm-hmm.
Sin is error. And, so I work to correct my errors.
Yes.
And what have I been, what is the path for that? The disciplines of prayer, reflection, calling myself to account every day. Like, okay, that one didn't go so well. What am I going to do when that comes up next time?
Yes.
Right. And because to think that there's some kind of, you were born in sin, there's no way around that, you're done.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Unless some person who got power from, whatever, says some words over you and says that you're not.
Yes.
And this is not my understanding of what God means for us. That there aren't people who are assigned that job.
I agree.
There are no priests in the Baha'i faith. There are no ministers.
Mm-hmm.
We have to study the text for ourselves. We have to practice the practice for ourselves. And the sort of administrative things are taken care of by elected people, because of course you have to have administrative things. Of course you do.
Some form of order.
You have a structure, you have an order.
Yes.
But it's not in the hands of individuals who can use it for their personal reasons.
Yeah.
Which is all through human history. That's what we've had up till now. Yeah. And it was probably kind of necessary, kind of do things that way. But when humanity reaches a stage of maturity, we have to use our understanding, our obedience, are learning to work together.
Yes, I agree.
And we don't have Big Brother hanging over us.
So my one of my favorite quotes that is commonly referenced, and I'm not going to quote it perfectly. I'm going to paraphrase. It is from the Baha'i writings, and it says that like pain and suffering outwardly look like fire, look as though fire, but inwardly they are light. And so for me, the understanding of that is it's fire if you're perceiving it from the worldly view, but if you are perceiving it from the spiritual perspective, it's telling you to apply certain spiritual principles in this scenario, and this
Mhm.
to an advancement or opportunity to utilize certain spiritual principles. And on the other side, you'll see the advancement in what was produced from applying that spiritual principle
Right.
in that scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you say the other side, that's our real home. And what Baha said, and Abdullah talked about it too, is this idea that this life is like the baby in the womb. Baby in the womb is developing arms and legs and eyes and ears and stuff, but are they using them there? No, they are not. But if they don't develop them there, what happens when they come into this world?
Yeah, they're
Without
incapacitated.
the ability to see and hear or move or walk and carry out the necessities of this life. It's this, the understanding is that same thing. These, justice and truthfulness and kindness and compassion and all of that, we develop those in the rough and tumble of our social life.
Yes, exactly. Yes. That's
In
the
our
only where
families.
you don't get a chance to apply them just in a happy day. You know what I
No,
mean? You know
no,
what I'm saying?
it's
There's no
the painful stuff.
Yeah, it's the rough stuff. That's where you have to apply the spiritual principles in order to gain the wisdom on the other side of what it is that you actually get, because you don't fully know what it is if you don't apply it. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's an idea, it's a theory, but when you apply it and you come through the other side, the understanding that is had, it goes beyond, well, I'll just say for this I'm talking about personal. I'm
Yeah,
talking a personal thing that just happened to me recently that made me have to apply these principles. And it was extremely hard, but on the other side, and through all of the acceptance that is necessary to really apply it, right? You can't fake it, right? You can't fake your way through it. So you have to really process yourself, your psychology, your whole being through this to get to the other side. And on the other side, what I discovered was a freedom for myself, and the person who this issue stemmed from, I see is in a state of transformation now. I didn't have much to do with that in the sense of my own personal intention on making
we
that
need to
happen.
make them do it.
Yes, but the fact that I applied these principles and spirit is bigger than me, this is the outcome that happened over there that I didn't have to do nothing about.
Yeah,
So
that's like a catalyst, right? A
it
catalyst
was a
is
beautiful
the thing that makes it happen, and it doesn't change, but it makes this happen.
It
Yeah,
was a beautiful understanding, and I would never have gotten it if I hadn't actually walked through it. So
which I'm sure was painful.
yes, it was.
Because I had a thing with that, with someone I cared a great deal about, and people who are around me a lot know that sometimes I open my mouth and I say really stupid things. I really do. That can hurt. It's not my intention. I never want to be hurtful. But
Right.
sometimes I want to say something clever, or I think I'm funny. If you know me, then you know. Sometimes I think I'm funny, right? And I say things, and there's some people that really are raw and say the wrong thing to them, and you didn't mean it, but you just stab them. Stab, stab, stab.
Yeah.
And I did this to someone I cared a great deal about. And he was so hurt and so ready to be done with me. And this is someone close in, so it wasn't someone who could be entirely done with me. It took me weeks to process that, because I had to do it at a level where I really had to look at myself and own it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I needed to write him a letter, but I needed to write him a letter that was about him and not about me and how bad I felt about what I had done. Because it doesn't matter for him how bad I felt about what I'd done. He was injured, and I had to work through that and really work through that. And all the things, I had to do a lot of thinking. And I eventually, wrote to him, and he kept the letter. He is not in this world anymore.
God bless.
But he kept the letter.
God bless.
And so I think one of the things that comes that I get beaten into me by these things is humility. I think humility for me right now is just, I don't know what I don't know. I'm a person who I like to know stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like to tell you stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably irritates people sometimes. I know it does. It does. It's like, just shut.
Well, we know ourselves, so
We know ourselves. Well, my grandson, my oldest grandson, apparently said to his mom, he's like, "Grandma really knows a lot of stuff." Like, well, yes, she does. Because I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I look up everything. I have to look up everything.
Yeah.
But humility, and it's that thing, like if they were given a prize out for humility, an award for humility, if they offered you the award for humility, would you accept it?
How humble are you, right?
How humble are you? It's like,
that's me all day. That's mine. Not him, me.
It's just like, okay, get the gold thing. So
So
no, every time I see myself, like I'm so humble. It's like, oh man, you just stepped in it again.
I'm gonna be honest. That's life is that. That is what life is, and I think that's the beauty of it. Like growth never stops, right?
No, right.
Yeah, that's the beauty of life, right? You have the opportunity to grow always. That's the beauty of it. That's one of my mottos. I did my fitness trainer thing, right? So one of my ideas is that you can never lose until you stop.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can come back 2 years later, like I'm back at it. Here we go again. But as long as you keep trying,
you just keep trying. Yeah.
Yeah, you're still in the game. But when you say I'll die, then it's over.
Yeah, if you're moving along, you might feel like you're not making progress. But if you're moving along, there's stuff coming towards you.
Yes.
And the thing that's coming towards you, God is going to send you the thing that you need, that probably is going to be a little painful, but you need to get through it. And then you're like, oh, okay. Oh, thanks. Okay, I see. But
so
if
why do you think God uses pain to teach us? It keeps up as the theme, right? Probably going to be a little painful, right?
But what's so interesting is in this materialistic society that we have, and I'm going to make that a blanket statement. We're in a materialistic society.
Yes.
And one of the messaging that we get is so consistent. And one of them is you shouldn't have to feel any pain and things are supposed to be easy. Yes. Why do we think that?
Yes.
Why do we think that? Because someone wants to pull some money out of our pockets because they think it's going to get them something.
Very true. Very, very true. I consider that idea related to capitalism to some degree, and I think capitalism has its positives, but I think in the general sense, it is creating competition, which is creating division, which is slowing down the progress of everyone.
Of humanity, yes.
Like if you take all of the like I said, all of the chemists and scientists working on cancer around the world in their secret laboratories and universities, you know what I mean? You put them all together, they have all of the pieces to the puzzle right there. But because they're all waiting on that $1 billion grant for being the first guy, no one's telling anyone what anyone else has discovered. And this is slowing our progress.
Right. And when they do share, we make so Baha and Chogi Effendi and Abdullah, they all talk about the struggle for existence. That's at the animal level. And there's a purpose for the animal level. Nothing wrong on animals. Animals are supposed to be the way they are.
Yes.
They're supposed to like struggle and compete. And we have that body and everything that we have to deal with, and we have to figure out an economy and all that stuff because we're social beings, we're humans, it's different. But humans were created for cooperation. That Baha says all were created for cooperation.
You can see it without ever reading it in a book. If you to the universe around you, God's handiwork, everything works in cooperation except the human species.
Well, except that we do. Have you ever seen the video of the Amish guys moving the barn?
No.
Look it up.
Okay.
Look it up.
Yes.
If you ever want to know why we cooperate. And so there's these Amish guys, and I think they get like 200 of them inside this barn, and they need to move the barn from here over to here, down the yard. They put all the beams up underneath. They like did jack it up, and they all get in there. 200 people, men, right? Big strong guys. 1, 2, 3, whoop, and they walk that sucker across the property.
Quarter mile, right?
Exactly. It was about a quarter mile, and everything that human beings have accomplished, they have accomplished cooperatively.
Yes, I agree.
Even Michelangelo still had to have a workshop full of people getting things ready for him so he could do what he did.
Yes.
Nobody does it alone.
I agree. And that's what I'm saying. Like, so I definitely may have misspoken when I said except humans, because that is the only reality ultimately. Right. But when you look at the way we're socially organized, we're not designed or socialized to work together. We're in competition. I'm better than you. I got this. You don't got that. La, la, la. You know what I mean?
Right. And that is serving, that is in service to, but see, humanity is ready for the next level. We're done with that. It's coming apart, Mike. Yeah. It's coming apart because it is not in line with reality.
I agree.
It's not in line with reality. So it's going to blow itself apart. What is our task? Our task is to help all these souls all around us know that they're loved by God, know that they have the capacities in them, that it takes work and practice, and we don't do it alone.
Yeah.
And then we have some tools, like, so now Baha has brought us the tool of consultation, spiritual consultation. It's like, so how do you make decisions without it being, well, my idea versus Brother Sadiq's idea, you know, whose idea is going to win? No. What do you bring and what do I bring?
Yes.
To this?
Yes.
And then what does God want? Of course, then always praying for God's will, right?
And that in itself makes support. Right, it creates community support because it's partially your idea, partially my idea. We both understand why you had that perspective and what we're supporting. So yeah, consultation is a beautiful expression of God's unity in this world, through the men that exist here. So and women, of course, I guess.
Right, the people, folks.
Yes, yeah, the souls. There we go. The souls. There we go.
The souls, yeah.
Oh yeah. This has been
anyway, that's kind of what my experience of prayer now is. I love to be, I pray by myself, but when we're in collective prayer, I love when we all just kind of let it settle down, just kind of get down into it and feel that, let that spirit into the room
The energy.
together. And yeah, and then then you feel it. Then you feel it. There's so many different ways to feel it. We feel it in music. We feel it in silence. Doesn't have to be one particular way. It's really, where are our hearts? Are our hearts pure? Are we detached from this world?
Yeah.
Are we really, looking for what, open up, like, help us, right? Help us.
Yeah. So I was having a conversation. I don't want to stay on here much longer. We've been on here.
No, we've done the hour and then some.
Yeah, we've been on here for at least an hour. And so is there anything else that you wanted to share with the people that you wanted, make sure you get out before it's all over? I just wanted to give you that opportunity.
I think I've touched on most of the stuff. I think the main thing that I think about is that this spirituality, it's an inside job, and it happens in the context of our brothers and sisters.
Yes, I agree. Another one of the things that I noticed from near-death experiencers is that the most important things that they find are the relationships that they had, not the jobs, not the money,
right.
Not the concerts. It's the relationships with people who were in their lives.
Yeah. So, I just want to tell one more experience, and again, it's my mother.
Yes.
Of her life. Actually, there are two people I've been present. It was my husband and my mother. I was present for their passing, both of them. I don't know if you were present for your mother's passing, but it's she passed, and it was a long journey with her. I know there is spirit because I've been present when spirit disconnects, disassociates, because it's not in us. So it just, when it's done with the body.
I like the disassociation word.
Yeah, it's associated with the body, so it dissociates with the body. And then life has gone out of that body. And my experience with my mother's passing is one instant, even though she was unconscious, they just had the beepy thing and we're all standing and waiting. 1 minute she was there was life, there was something, and then the next instant it was not there. And when I looked at her, it was like the difference between looking at a person and looking at a log, just a something.
A doll, maybe.
A doll, or just elemental. Went from there was spirit here to this is an elemental thing in front of me.
Wow.
And and then I also was present for the passing of my husband. So, and I know you met Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the light goes out and you're like, where'd it go? I mean, literally, I was like, where'd he go? He was here and now he's not. Where'd he go?
Mm.
It's a mystery.
Yes, it is.
It's a complete mystery.
Yes, it is.
And I've been present for it.
Yeah, I came into the Baha'i faith as from Islam.
Yeah.
And Islam teaches you to ponder death occasionally, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's something that I ponder, fairly often. I probably more than I should, but you know what I'm saying, more than the average person does. But I think that when you do that, I think it motivates you to, like you said, not leave anything on the table.
Yeah, it informs how you live.
Yes, it makes you want to express this love, this this desire for other. See, because like I said, all of the things that most of what I ain't gonna even front. Like I talk to people from all walks, and so I say I don't even have the idea that I'm working on my life to get to heaven. I don't feel like that. I don't feel like, oh, I'm trying.
yeah.
I don't feel like that. I don't feel like that's what my life was ever about. I feel like my life is more about sharing with other people the expression of spirit and them understanding that we are more than what we physically see. I feel like that. Yeah, I feel like that's more why I'm here than to be saying, oh, I need to make sure I get to heaven. That ain't
I gotta get my ticket, right?
yeah, I feel like I'm supposed to be helping everybody now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
And we all help each other, right?
yes,
So
yes,
Ram Dass, you know Ram Dass,
yes, of course.
he said we're all just walking each other home.
Thank you. Thank you. I fully agree. I fully agree. And so if I bump into you, that's what I was talking about. Like if you're just seeing me in a car, I hope that the energy you get from me is a positive thing for you. You know, like the orange or the lemon, right? You know what I'm saying? We're all creating something, whether we're consciously aware.
That's right. That's right. That's
So
always trying to bring that to, you know, if I'm checking out at the store or whatever, I'm like, try to be not just lost in my thoughts, but I see you. I see you.
Yeah. In fact, I like your shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do that. I do that.
I want to do all of that. I want everybody to get a little something better. You know, I want you to hope.
Right. Like how you did that. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, turn your light on a little bit. So God bless.
Just bring the light. Just bring the light.
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate my Baha'i community. I appreciate you and your sharing. And like I said, if there's anything else you wanted to throw out there before we get off here.
I think we got it. We're all just walking each other home.
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate that line. And as I like to say before I get out of here, my tagline is all roads lead to spirit.
I agree.
Yes, ma'am. And YouTube and to the millions around the world watching, thank you all for being here. I hope you got something from it, and I will see you on the next episode.
Thank you, Brother Sadiq.
Blessings. Good night.
Good night.
Stop recording. Stop recording.